much. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We're kind of a nice, small, intimate group, which is great. Hey, could everyone just drop in the chat where you're from? I'm just curious where people are from. I'd love to know. I'm nosy. Um, while you're doing that, I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Nadine Gomes. I am a teaching professor of musical theater at the Theater Conservatory at Roosevelt University. Chicago College of Performing Arts. It's the longest title in the universe. I've been there for a super long time. Oh, we got people from all over the place. This is great. Illinois, Kentucky, California. Love it. Yeah, I'm in the south suburb of Chicago. You may see some cats jumping around. There are 6 cats in here. So, just if you see some tails or something, don't get alarmed. Today I have a really in-depth PowerPoint presentation for you on how to put together a really compelling audition package. But since there are not a lot of us, I'd love to keep this kind of informal. And if you have questions, I want you to ask them as we go. That's fine. There's lots to know. There's lots to dig into. So I am going to share my lovely screen and we will start this fabulous PowerPoint. Okay, so let me move this so I can see things. All right, so how to nail your MT college audition. All right, so, and of course that's not working. Here we go, great. All right, so putting it together, your audition package. So we often talk about the audition package, and I want to explain what that is. So what is that? So the audition package is the combination of songs and monologues that you get to present to your various college programs. And crafting this and putting it together and making everybody happy is an art form. It really takes some doing. So I want to give you some guidelines, the do's and do nots, and all kinds of stuff. So first and foremost, every school has their own rules and their own guidelines of what they want. And it is super complicated to keep it all straight. Some programs want 2 song cuts, 2 monologues, or 1 song cut, 2 monologues, 1 song cut, 3 monologues. I mean, like, it's everything, right? And then I want a 16-bar cut. I want a 32-bar cut. I want a minute-long cut. I want a contemporary monologue. I want a classical monologue, blah, everything. So, and you're going to have to try to make every school happy. So you might have to have various cuts of the same pieces to make all the guidelines for your various schools. So that is complicated. And then also you're trying to show some contrast and variety among all of the pieces that you get to do. So it's a lot to piece together, okay? And honestly, just keeping it all straight is a job. And so I suggest that you do something like this. And you create yourself a little musical theater college audition spreadsheet. So I've come up with 4 lovely fictional institutions. We have Shiz University, Million Dollar Conservatory, Jagged Little College, and School of Rock. And I've broken it down into, okay, how many songs do these places want? And how long, right? And criteria, because in the songs, they get specific. Sometimes they're going to say, a lot of times they want one of the songs to be pre-1970. So they want to hear an older piece of musical theater repertoire. Or sometimes they want a pop rock song, or they really specify we want a ballad and an up-tempo, or whatever. Can be all kinds of different things. Or they only want to hear contemporary. Some schools only want to hear contemporary. So you really got to keep it all straight. Monologues vary. It's usually no more than 2 monologues. 1 to 2 minutes tops. And again, it varies what kinds of monologues they want. Trying to keep track of, does your school have a pre-screen? Is there a pre-screen video due? A lot of places do. And if so, when? When is the application due? When is the live audition? Where is it? And then also accompaniment at your actual audition. Is there going to be a live accompanist? Do you need to provide a backing track and a playback device and a speaker and all that kind of stuff? So all of those are some variables from audition to audition. This is just my suggestion of, little categories you could have, but you could certainly come up with something of your own that's just prettier and lovely. But I do think this really will help you. It is a lot of information to keep straight, and people apply to a lot of schools these days. So you're really trying to put together the least amount of pieces that can make the most schools happy. so that you can be so polished on your stuff when it comes around to pre-screens and auditions. Okay. All right. Also, I'm going to share a PDF of this whole PowerPoint with you, so you don't have to take furious notes. But I'm going to I'm going to put the whole thing in the chat so you can have it afterwards. All right. So then, okay. So here are my biggest words of wisdom when you're choosing your cuts. Don't assume that every piece has to be big and showy and in your face. That actually can get kind of a lot in the audition room. Sometimes subtle and honest and simple is really impressive and really appealing. And you really want to be careful with, if you're going to do three, let's say it's 2 songs and 1 monologue. And if everything's big and huge and in your face, it's a lot behind the audition table. It's kind of like you're yelling at me. And I don't get to see lots of different sides of you, you know? And I think people feel like they have to show us like every note they've got to be as loud as humanly possible, but you don't want to belt your whole cut. You don't want to just be huge all the time. Seeing a range of dynamics, seeing expression and all of those things, that is really impressive to see in a young performer. So those are things that we're really looking for. So I'm not saying don't belt or don't sing forte. I'm just saying don't do it for the entire cut. Like moments, little bits, cool, plenty. Okay? All right. Then less is more when it comes to riffing. So if you're a good riffer and your song calls for riffing, go for it, but don't make like half the cut be riffing either, because riffing is impressive, but we don't need to see a lot of it to know that you can do it. And you also want your riffing to be emotionally grounded, right? It needs to still be about something and not just here's my fabulous voice, right? If you do one showy song, make sure that the other song is smaller, more intimate, more vulnerable, just gives us a little, like pulls us in a little bit as opposed to like singing at us, if that makes sense. Okay. Avoid monologues where all you do is yell or cry. This is a big one. This happens a lot. It's yelling and crying for the whole piece is not very inviting. And it can make you, oops, sorry, I hit my slide. It makes you kind of come off like a victim, and you really don't want to do that in the audition room. We want to root for you. We want to see you be the hero of your own story. But if all you're doing is yelling or crying, it doesn't show a lot of nuance. You still want an arc and a journey in your monologue. So you can have moments that are big and yelly or moments where you cry, but just not the whole thing. Okay. It's so much more interesting to see someone trying to keep it together under challenging circumstances than someone who's just losing it. Okay. All right. Beautiful. So, here's another one. So this is specific to college auditions. Okay. Avoid villains and over the top characters. So you can have like one piece like that, but like if every piece in your audition package is like a bad guy, it kind of starts to reflect on you. We're kind of like, who are you? Are you okay? Should I be scared of you? Are you all right? We want to get an idea of who you are. And so not that like every piece has to be exactly who you are, but I think at least one should be, which should reflect some aspect of your personality and who you are at this moment. These really big heightened characters don't really do that. And like really stylized characters like King George and Hamilton, Blackstash, those kinds of characters, it's too much. It's too charactery. We don't get a sense of you. And we want to hear your authentic speaking voice. So like, I don't really want to hear dialect in the audition room. And I don't want to hear an imitation of the cast album. I want to hear your version of this song. I want to hear your authentic, unique, beautiful voice interpreting this song in a different way. We already have a cast album. We don't need to hear that again. We want to hear you. Okay. So, and I think that I think, if you're auditioning for a show where there's a villain and you want to do a bad guy song or monologue, great. But for college auditions, you just don't have a lot of time in the audition room, period. Like minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes tops, like not a lot of time to actually perform. So you really want to think about what you're saying with your song choices, if that makes sense. So that's that. All right. And so other considerations, uh, don't play a character that is far outside of your age range. Now, you are all young people, so you don't necessarily have to play teenagers. You could go into like early to mid 20s, that's fine. But older than that, we're kind of stretching it, right? You want to have the life experience to bring to a character. And we want to get a sense again of who you are as, a 17-year-old person when you're auditioning for college. And you are not an old lady or an old man. You are a young person. So we want to see you exploring situations that are more age appropriate. Okay. So if you do not identify as a person of color, please do not sing a song that was written to be performed by a person of color. So, like, if you do not identify as Latinx, please don't sing Breathe from In the Heights. It's a lovely song, but there are lots of lovely songs that will show off Big Belt. And that is one that the author, Lin-Manuel, intended to be sung by a Latinx actor. So you just want to respect that. There are any song where any character where the race is an issue in the show, like in Ragtime or In the Heights or things like that. You want to be appropriate about that because you risk offending someone in the audition room, and you don't want to do that. By that same token, stay away from overly sexual, like seductive material and profanity-laden songs and monologues. Now, a couple of swear words here and there is probably not the end of the world, but if it's just like all expletives, that's kind of a lot. And that's kind of similar to just like yelling, you know. Also, definitely don't do anything like that if you're auditioning for a faith-based institution. Please don't do that. Just don't risk offending people. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Anything anybody would like to ask about, or any specific songs, monologues, questions, ideas, anything?
Um, how do you? So I was recently casted as Maurice in Beauty and the Beast. How do you portray an elderly, not elderly, but older character correctly? Because I'm having trouble figuring out that.
Yeah, it's tricky, right? Because you still want to have your own singing voice, right? You don't want to sound like you're 70 necessarily. And if you're just doing this in the show, Isaac, is that what you're thinking? Like
Yeah,
how you do this healthily in the show? Yeah, I mean, there are things you can do with sort of with posture, and I think maybe sometimes you can put that more in your speaking voice than your singing voice. Because I think it's a little easier to sort of maybe lower your speaking voice, or maybe add a little crack here and there to your speaking voice. But I think it's harder to do that well with your singing voice as a young person whose voice is still developing. Um, so my advice would be to sort of, you know, find some physical gestures. Uh, it's going to be costume. We're going to know you're an older guy, an older character with the costume. And don't do anything that risks your vocal health. Okay. We have to be careful sometimes with character parts, you know. But you want to make sure that there's still breath involved, because sometimes with an older person you can hear this like lack of air support, but that doesn't fly for singing, you know. So yeah, I would be careful with the singing, and maybe like shorter phrases to sort of indicate age a little bit. But like breathe a little more often and take some shorter phrases, but I just wouldn't go nuts trying to sound like a completely different human being when you sing. Does that make sense?
yes, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm sure you'll be fabulous. Um, any other questions thus far? I mean, because yeah, character parts are tricky. But I'll say they really don't work for me in the audition room, because again, I only get to hear so much of you. And if all I'm hearing is like dialect or like a character that's like very over the top, that doesn't really like show me a lot. You know, we're really looking for like honesty and vulnerability and that kind of stuff. So just the big, huge characters, which are very appropriate in certain shows, just don't always work as like cuts in the audition room, if that makes sense. All right, so I'm going to move on a little bit, but feel free to bring questions, y'all. I'm so open. Okay. This is the hot topic. Okay, overdone audition songs. All right, so I just gave you a list of what I heard the most of this year. Okay, this list could go on forever, but number one, "Try Me" from She Loves Me. My tenor and baritone friends, please put the song away. It is so overdone. It has been for years, but even more so this year. Vanilla Ice Cream from She Loves Me. Honestly, everything from She Loves Me. For whatever reason, this is the golden age musical that everybody chooses to sing from. And it's a great show, but every song, almost every single song from this show is overdone. So if you need a pre 1970s golden age piece for your auditions, please look at a different show. I'm just giving you some solid advice here. Oh, I see a chat. Let's see. Anybody with a question? Oh, just started working on Santa Fe. Oh, it's a good song. It just gets done a lot, you know. Lost in the Brass, number one for the Big Belty. Oh my gosh, all the time. On the Street Where You Live, all the time. Dead Mom, time to all of these. I Can Cook Too also kind of goes back to like the overly sexual stuff. While it's not, it's just a one joke song that's just like we're talking about food, but we're really talking about sex, and it's just like seductive, but it's just kind of uncomfortable when you're like a grown middle-aged adult watching 17-year-olds do that. It's not great. And it's just done a lot. So you can find things that are better. It's not a very interesting acting journey either. It's just kind of like one thing. So, you know, it's just be mindful of it. And look, and this is the thing. So my friend who is singing Santa Fe, I think, yes, it's okay. It's not that you can't do it, but you risk being one of 17 people they heard that day do it, right? You need to be careful too, because some schools do have like a do not sing list, like a list of songs that they do not want to hear, and you better obey that list. Okay. If they gave you a list and they said don't sing from it, they mean it. But also, those lists are helpful because if it's on that school's do not sing list, it's probably a song we're all hearing. Okay. Like I said, this list could be a lot bigger. All right. But these were just some of the most frequent things that I saw. All right. So just be mindful, and like you can find lists of overdone college audition songs. Just Google, you'll find a million. But it's not that you have to do the most obscure thing in the world, but you just don't want to do something that you know is done a lot. And it's just harder to stand out. And I'll say that every year we accept people who have done songs on this list. Okay. It's not that we won't say yes sometimes, but it's really hard to stand out. So those people were just exceptionally wonderful, and we were able to see past the fact that they sang "Try Me" like 800 other people did. But it's a risk. Okay. So just be mindful. Okay. So I lost my cursor. There it is. Okay. All right. So other things to be aware of. Stay away from songs from recent Broadway hits. Waitress, Mean Girls, Dear Evan Hansen, and Hamilton. Okay, and same goes for ongoing mega hits, Wicked, Lion King, Les Mis, those kinds of things. The big Disney shows, they just all tend to be overdone. And then here's a little word of advice. So be careful about songs in major musical theater anthologies, and I'm specifically talking about the Singers Musical Theater Anthology. You probably know what these books are. They're the ones that are for like soprano, mezzo, tenor, bass baritone, and I think they have like 7 volumes per voice now. So this is particularly true in the early volumes, volumes 1 and 2 in particular, of every voice. Just about everything in those books is overdone. So now they're really important songs to know for just to be a well-versed musical theater person. These are all really classic, famous, important songs, but most of them are overdone in the audition room. So it's just something to think about. So it's can be tricky sometimes to find those lesser done songs. Well, what can I sing? You just said I couldn't sing anything. Okay, so one thing I'll say is, and because I think also people have a very hard time with the pre 1970s golden age thing, um, get to know some classic musical theater composers. So like Cy Coleman, Julie Stein, Frank Lesser, Kander and Ebb, Lerner and Lowe, Rodgers and Hammerstein, some of those people. And don't look for their popular shows. Look for the shows you've never heard of in your whole life. Or ask your voice teacher, what are sort of the flop shows that these people wrote? So they're great composers. So there's usually great songs in the shows that were not big hits, but they're not known as well and they're not done as often because they were not super popular shows. So those are gold mines. You should also get familiar with some American songbook composers. Irving Berlin, Cole Porter, George Gershwin, Harold Arlen, Johnny Mercer. There's tons of them. A lot of them wrote book musicals, and then they also wrote just great songs. Some schools will ask for an American songbook song also, which is sort of 20s to 1920s, 1950-ish. And then something else you can do is make a list of your favorite musical theater singers and just do a deep dive on Spotify, YouTube, and find out like everything these people have done. And you might find some really lovely songs. I think we all have a couple people that we kind of feel are like our vocal role models or our vocal doppelgangers, right? And like if Sutton can sing it, I can sing it, or whatever. So if you've got some people like that in your life, this is a really good way to find new rep, because a lot of these people have YouTube videos of them singing in New York at like 54 below and doing some new composers song cycle or something. You might find some really interesting pieces. Or also a lot of them may have been in some revivals that you didn't know about. And sometimes it's nice. I think sometimes one of the things that's hard with older shows and older music is that the style of singing, even the style of singing legit music, has changed over the decades. Okay. Like if you listen to the original cast recording of Carousel, and then you compare it to their cast recording with Jesse Mueller, it sounds really different. It's still legit. There are still these long, tall, legato phrases and lots of vibrato and all those things, but it's more conversational. It's a little less operatic. Our tastes in singing have changed. And sometimes you listen to those original cast albums and the character's supposed to be 18 and the singer sounds like they're 50, and it's kind of off-putting when you're a young person. So sometimes it's nice to hear a more current singer sing songs from the golden age and from these older musicals, and you might find it more palatable to your ear. Okay. And then also, if you don't know about this site, there is a site called newmusicaltheater.com, and this is a great place where you can find music by newer composers, sort of up and coming composers. This is where like Pasek and Paul got their start before they were everywhere. And there's lots of composers here that are really worth getting to know. And some of them you'll have heard of. I mean, there's Kerrigan and Loudermilk, and there's Adam Guan and people like that. But then there are a lot of new people that they're getting added all the time. And you can search songs by, genre, or like I want a ballad, I want something funny, blah, blah, blah. And they usually give you a video of the song so you can see someone singing it on YouTube, and then you purchase the sheet music digitally right there on the site. So that's a nice place to find some unusual contemporary material that isn't just off of like the hottest show on Broadway. Okay. And now I have another thing to tell you about. This is one of my absolute favorite resources, especially for finding that older rep. And this is something that a lot of people don't know about. So this is a website called accuradio.com. I'm going to take you there in just a sec. So you're all probably familiar with like Pandora, streaming radio, where you can make yourself like a Sarah Bareilles channel or whatever. You can make a channel based on an artist you like, right? And then they'll find you some similar like things from that artist and recommend similar people, and you can kind of go down the rabbit hole there. So AccuRadio is a streaming radio station that already has preset channels. So I'm going to stop this share for just a sec, and we are going to look at something else. Okay, hold up. Here we go. Okay, can everybody see AccuRadio? Yes, we can see it. Okay, I'm going to assume that is a yes. Okay, so here is fabulous AccuRadio. Okay, so they have all of these different genre channels. Okay, and all different types of things. There's, there's opera and there's punk and there's rock and there's reggae and there's all these things. But the one that we care about is Broadway. So you go to Broadway, and then you will find about 40 sub channels. And so they have Broadway by the decades, so 50s Broadway, 60s, 70s, 80s, etc. They have Broadway love songs, Broadway revivals, Broadway rock, comedic musicals, and then they have features on some big musical theater composers, some of the ones I mentioned earlier. Cole Porter, George Gershwin, Richard Rodgers, Stephen Schwartz, Stephen Sondheim, Berlin, Gershwin, Kern, Porter, all these folks, right? So you could learn some music by some of these older composers. Les Miserables radio, if you just want to bum out hard all day, that sounds like fun. London casts, Tony Award winners, all different types of things. These channels change up, but there are new things here all the time. It's free. You can either just access it on accuradio.com or you can get an app, iOS or Android, and it's free. And so like Pandora, you can skip like 2 songs at a time, but you can learn a ton of music by just putting this on while you're cleaning your room or whatever. It's an incredible resource. There are also a couple other channels you might check out. One is Pop Standards, it's kind of an odd name for this, but that is more American songbook again. So things like Frank Sinatra and like Billie Holiday, and then Harold Arlen, Gershwin's, Berlin, Bach Rock, Johnny Mercer, all these other people. So this is another great place to find some of that music. And then there's also a cabaret station. And cabaret tends to sort of be a mixture of like musical theater and jazz. But there are some good pieces here too. So like female cabaret, male cabaret, cabaret featuring different people. These channels change up. But this is an incredible free resource and you can learn so much new stuff. So I love AccuRadio. Okay, I'm gonna get back to my fabulous PowerPoint. Okay, go. All right. Okay, so we talked about that. Fabulous. Okay, okay. So again, I'm sending you this whole thing so you can have all these links afterwards. I think one of the hardest things to figure out is monologues. All right. Like a lot of you probably have voice teachers, but you might have never been in an acting class in your whole life. Like you've been in shows and you've done scenes and stuff like that, but have you ever done a monologue? Maybe, maybe not. And how do you find them and what's good? And it's not that easy. And it's the standard. Like everybody has to use monologues to audition for college. So I think it's challenging. I think finding good material is hard. So these are a couple of articles that have a ton of resources that are age appropriate monologues. So things that are actually appropriate for teens, that would make good college auditions. I can't vouch for every single piece on all of these lists, but these are sources that I trust. And I think you'll probably be able to find a lot of stuff. I mean, this first one has 62 monologues. So like, that's a lot. And so these are some great articles and just good starting points if you just don't even know where to begin in finding a monologue. And that's a lot of people. That's a very common problem. Okay. And then also you should Google overdone monologues too. Like same thing with the songs, because there are some. And they change up too. I don't consider myself a monologue expert, but I do know a good monologue when it works. Okay. And it's the same thing. It's like you just want an arc, you want a journey, you want, with a song or a monologue, whatever emotional state you begin should not be the same place you end. There should be some discovery, realization, decision by the end. Even in a short cut, even in a 16-bar cut, I want to see something happen. Okay? All right, so moving on. Okay, cursor, there you are. Okay. I have written a ton of articles for CS Music, and almost all of them are about college auditions. They're like all kinds of different aspects. All right. Videos, pre-screens, dance auditions, what should I wear? What should I know music theory wise? All these different things. So if you want some more advice, there's lots of it here. So lots of things to talk about here. So there's that. And let's see. Okay. So Yeah, basically, you have so little time in the audition room, and most schools don't even really do an interview for musical theater. We might chat with you a little bit in the audition room, but you don't really have a lot of time to show us who you are. So the you really need to take that care with how you choose those pieces. And do they feel like you? Do you also, you should love them. You should love, love, love your audition pieces because you're going to do them a lot. And the fact of the matter is a song and a monologue that you love, you're going to enjoy doing, and you're also going to bring more of yourself to it than something that's good for you, but you hate it, right? That's never a good time. So be mindful of that. Um, like I just said again, make sure every song and monologue has an emotional journey. We still want you acting when you're singing. A beautiful voice is lovely, but we want to see a human being behind it. Okay, so that's really, really, really important. Um, and so, but if you take the time and you do the detective work to find these really awesome pieces, you're going to have a really special audition, and it's going to be a lot easier for you and your talent to shine through because it's going to be personal. It's going to be special to you, right? You're never going to make everybody happy. You can't. You can't do it. But you should at least make yourself happy, and you should at least feel good about the pieces that you are presenting, right? And again, if these pieces really show you, there are going to be schools who are going to see that and love that, and those are the right ones for you. The ones who see you and love you are the right ones for you, right? The ones that you kind of always have to prove yourself to, and they're kind of like, that's not the right school for you, you know? So the time that you put into this really does matter. Okay. And I think we're just about there. See, it's the audition day. You've got it. You can do it. And I've also just put my contact information if you want to get in touch with me, because I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have about the audition process, specifically about Roosevelt, anything. But I'm going to stop this share and I'm going to put this PDF in the chat, and then I would love to open this up to questions. Okay, let me just grab this real quick. La, la, la. Okay, what is it called? There it is. And boop, there you go. Okay, so PDF is loading. All right. I'm dying to hear all your questions. Anything, whether it's on topic or not, whether you want to say, what do you think about this song? What should I do? Anything. How do I pick colleges? Whatever. You got my time. I'm here. Happy to talk. Everybody's just a name on the screen. There must be things you want to know. How about, oh, Girl in 14G? Okay. Super hard to cut. Like, really hard to cut because that song is so much about all three of those sounds, right? The opera, the jazz, the big belty thing. And so all you could probably do is show us like one of them. And or just do the ends. And I don't know if the end really makes sense. So I think it's a great piece when you can do it in its entirety. There are some songs like this, like you just need to do the whole song for it to make any sense. And I think Girl in 14G is one of those. It's really vocally impressive, but I don't think you can cut it until, because most schools max they want to hear a minute and a half max. So a minute and a half of 14G is just not enough, so great song, do it in your recital, like, have it in your life, but I just don't think it excerpts well. And that's one of the tricky things with audition stuff. Same thing, this is the same thing with like these big yelly screamy monologues. Like in the show, when that moment happens in the play, we've already gotten to know the character, we've seen them do lots of other things, and this is the big climactic emotional moment, and they've earned it at that point, and there's context for them getting there. But if you're just out of the gate, like, why did you do this to me? And that's how a lot of these monologues start. it's a lot, you know, and we haven't gotten the chance to like see the progression. How long do I hear stupid? How often do I hear "Stupid with Love" from Mean Girls? I didn't hear it a lot this year. I heard it a little more last year. Regina George is out. Any Regina George song is out. I didn't hear "Stupid in Love" that much, but I would also be a little careful just because it's Mean Girls, and most of that stuff is done. You know, um, here's the thing too. It depends on. I probably wouldn't do it at a pre-screen. And there are some schools where they say like bring your book like to your live audition and stuff. And sometimes they might ask to hear some other stuff besides like your prepared things. And if that's on your list, let them ask you for it, you know? But I guess I just wouldn't make it my opening hand. I would just be a little careful. I think chances are it's just such a recent hit. It's so popular. And I think you can find some songs that do the same thing without just being from Mean Girls. And this is where you might go to that newmusicaltheater.com site. And I think you could probably find all kinds of like awkward in love songs, like tons of them. But it's a good question. It's a good question. This year, not so much. Like, you know, and sometimes it's weird. Sometimes there's just like a song of the year, and it's like everybody does that song. And sometimes it's completely unpredictable. There's a song called "This Is All Very New to Me" from Plain and Fancy, which is the Amish musical, which was written, I don't know, in the 60s or something. And one year I heard it 12 times, and I had like never heard it ever at an audition before, ever. So like, why everybody, and from all over the country, why was everybody singing this song? Somewhere That's Green. Okay, here's the thing with Somewhere That's Green. If you're gonna do the Audrey voice, you know, with the whole thing, then I would be careful because that's not your voice, okay? If you can just sing it from a really true, vulnerable place with your own instrument, then I think it's okay, you know? But I would just be careful of like that stereotypical character voice that we often see from Audrey, right? Same thing with Adelaide, you know, like that kind of thing. Those very, oh my god, you know, those kind of characters. That's not how you sound. I'm quite sure, right? And so we just want to hear a genuine instrument again, because I mean, like 3 minutes of singing, maybe is what I get, you know. So like that's not a lot of time to judge what you can do, right? So like challenging, you know, it is challenging. It's really hard. But no, and I think Somewhere That's Green is it's a very beautiful, moving song, and it can be very vulnerable and heartwarming. I think you just have to sing it from the heart, you know, and just be mindful of that. You know, and look, you're never gonna make everybody happy. We've all got different opinions, and some people will be like, "Don't you ever sing that song?" And then some people are like, "Yay, sing that song!" So like, you know, it's hard to say definitively. I like singing it because I feel like a Disney princess singing. Yes, agreed. You know, I think, and there are so many. I think there are other songs that have. When I always say this, I always tell people like if they want like a Disney song, to think of a song that's like Disney esque. And what I mean by that is when Disney songs are always like, you know, when will my reflections show who I am inside? You know, I want to be where the people are. Like when, you know, when will my life begin? Right? When will I get my chance? Like this is not a Disney song, but I think like Waiting for Life to Begin from Once on This Island is inherently a Disney song. It's this like thematically, right? Like I'm waiting for my chance to live my life, right? And I think that there are a lot of songs like that that are really great for young people. These sort of yearning songs of like I want to take life by the I want when do I get my adventure? When do I get to be who I'm supposed to be? So yeah, what do you do if the song you are performing has a dance break in it? So again, unless it's a dance program, well, that's like we have 3 majors at Roosevelt. So we have acting, musical theater, and musical theater dance, which is musical theater. This is a very unusual major. So musical theater dance is for the people who are what I call the triple pirouette, kick your face dancers. People who've been dancing since they were like 3 years old, and they've been taking dance class forever, and maybe are even newer to musical theater. And so have those great dance skills, want to be taking dance class, you know, 5 days a week, but also need more like singing and acting training. So for like those people, like if you're doing like All I Need Now Is the Girl or something like that from Gypsy, right? Yeah, you could. But I think because your time is so limited in the singing part of the audition, I think we want to hear you sing for the duration of it. Unless they specifically say okay. Generally, like, okay, there's also an art to the cut itself. Okay. Um, sometimes I'll say 16 bars, 32 bars. Some schools are super strict about that. And some schools are not. Um, the whole 16-32 bar idea came about sort of in the American songbook era because that's how composers wrote. They wrote in those durations. Like Gershwin songs and Porter songs and Berlin songs, the structure of it, like here's the verse, here's the chorus, you can kind of count out. It's like, oh, that's 16 bars. Contemporary composers don't write like that. And so sometimes 16 bars of a contemporary song doesn't make any sense. So sometimes some schools will say more like time, like I want a 30-second cut, I want a minute cut, and then it's whatever you can squeeze into that, right? But yeah, I would say that most musical programs like have a dance call, and like that's where they're going to want to see you dance. Or some pre-screens will ask you to submit like a minute ballet routine or something. Or they even have like a wild card thing on the in the pre-screen video, the one through Get Accepted. And so sometimes you could do something like that dance break there. But yeah.
I
Question?
think I was just going to say, I think he might be asking a little bit more of like, if he's going to be singing the song, does he cut that dance break
Out.
portion of the music out?
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know,
I would. I mean, here's the thing. It's like also I will say this too. This is true for professional auditions. Like if when you're choosing to do a song that's done by a character who is like a dancer, right? If you're singing I Can Do That from a chorus line, which is all about like being a ridiculous tapper, you should be a ridiculous tapper. And if you're like doing that song and you're not a ridiculous tapper, you're sort of giving a false message, if that makes sense, right? So yeah, I would absolutely cut the dance break. You can make all kinds of cuts in your pieces. That doesn't matter. You can definitely, do a little bit of the beginning and a little bit of the end and just piece it together as long as it musically and dramatically makes sense. Cut away. But I wouldn't waste the time you have on the instrumental dance break. You want to be singing. Does that answer that question, Isaac? I'm hoping it does. Okay, yes, okay, you got it. um, let's see. Any other questions or things that you've been told that contradict what I just said? Because that's fine too. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Anything else you want to know about audition life? Um, the big thing is like just what we often say. I will say that like I watched a ton of auditions this year, and it was all pre-screen and Zoom. It was a good time, but it was good. We found some great folks. A good audition package stands out so much so that we would say to some people that was a great audition package, meaning like you featured yourself so well. You showed so like different colors in your singing voice. You showed different aspects of yourself as an actor. You showed yourself as someone with a lot of range as a performer. And it really stands out when people can do that. It's wildly impressive and it's possible. I think you just have to think about it and think about, just what do you do really, really well? What kind of music do you love singing? Okay. And if you have to sing something like, let's say you don't love that pre 1970s music, well, work real hard to find a song you connect to so that you can love that too. Because it's part of the whole thing. There's so little time in that room. There's so little time. So you really just want to choose every bit of it carefully. And that's my main advice, and dig deep on the rep. Like try to find some different things. Try to find some stuff that just isn't the stuff that everybody on their cat is doing. Okay. So That's kind of my big advice. Any questions on your end? Or Mary?
I love, you know what? I love that. I love that. You know, it's been surprising. I don't know if it was, I was telling someone recently, I was at a high school and we talked about recruiting for musical theater and a few things about auditioning. And I was surprised they were like, wait, recruiting like sports? I was like, yes.
Yes.
What? Oh my goodness, yes. So I will say, they were all deer in the headlights. Like they had never heard that before. So I'm so glad that it exists because it's so amazing to have such talented and worthwhile, opportunities to see performers. And so this past year has been interesting, but I think it's great. And so I would reiterate what Nadine said about checking out the articles that she's written on CS Music, because there's some really worthwhile information. And we also have a couple of ongoing articles that feature repertoire for both opera and musical theater. So if you guys
Yeah,
are,
Ben Cameron's written some good stuff.
yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
No, no,
yeah.
there are CS Music has so many resources. There's so much out there. And like just sometimes, you just don't get to know everything that ever was, right? Or your drama teacher only knows so many shows, or your voice teacher only knows so many shows, or like whatever, right? And so we all benefit from branching out and learning from other people's expertise.
Well, and just when you think, I mean, I've been a part of this company for over 5 years now. And, before that, I was a big musical theater enthusiast. And you would think that I've heard it, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, you would think so, but I swear every year someone comes around and multiple come around and I'm like, well, that's a new one I've not heard. And it's amazing and beautiful. So there's a lot of resources out there when it comes to audition repertoire. And
Oh,
so,
for sure, there really is. And I also like did a lot. I have a new article that'll be coming out soon that's actually about a lot of what I just talked about today. But the idea of everything not being big and showy, I don't think that information is out there. I see so many people where the song is just from the beginning and it's just huge, and then the second song is and it's all riffy and it's just huge, and then the monologue is like you broke my heart, and it's just like that big the whole time. And I'm just exhausted behind the table. And it's not just me. Like, I adjudicate with a ton of people, and it just feels like you're being yelled at. It's like, why are you mad at me? I just think, and the thing is, I will tell you this too, that for most of us behind the table, we want to love you. We are rooting for you. We want you to be awesome. We are really hoping that we adore you. Okay. So, you want some of what you're putting out there to be likable and endearing. And it's shocking. I call it the overwrought package, where just like everything is big. And I don't feel like I've seen a person. I feel like I just saw somebody doing what they thought was impressive, but I didn't get even a glimpse of who that person was. And we've also got to think in this like 5 minutes, do we want to work with this person for 4 years? Are you a good fit for our school as a human? Not just a talent, but as a human, right? And so you want all of your choices to be somewhat reflective of who you are and what you care about and what you're passionate about. Because it's kind of your interview too, and that's it. And it's weird. Musical theater auditions are weird, you know? But yeah, I mean, I think that's about what I've the wisdom I've got. That's about what I've got to share. Because I could talk forever about all of it, but but I know it's a crazy process. It's a stressful process. It's hard to even just narrow down what kind of programs you want to apply for and all that kind of thing. And what's a good fit for you and all that stuff. But the other thing I'll say is just that it is a two-way street in the audition room. We have to choose you, but you also have to choose us, you know? And no program is right for everybody. No program. And sometimes you have an idea of what you think is your dream program, and then you get in that audition room and those people are so mean and you just get this like just like contempt off of the audition table, or you talk to people at the school and they're all just like whatever. And like if you get that vibe, you listen to that vibe. But if you are in the audition room and you feel like they love you, and if they are telling you they love you, and if you feel welcome and warm, this is a school that wants to work with you. And this could be a school that gives you money to be there. All of those good things, like that stuff matters. So, like the vibe that you get in the audition process, on campus, from the other students, that stuff really, really matters. Do not ignore it, because it's 4 years of your life and it's expensive and you want it to be the right fit. Okay. So
Oh, I
you make
love that.
that choice too.
Yeah, that is so important. 100%. Yeah. And you've got to be able to click with the people you're going to be working with
Yeah.
for 4 years. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you'll learn so much just from like talking to some students who are helping at auditions. Be
Mm.
like, I love these people, or ooh, I don't like this. This is not for me. No, and you'll know. You'll know. You'll absolutely know. Your gut counts. Okay.
Well, that's perfect. Well, thank you, Nadine, so much. Let's see. I believe Roosevelt is doing. Are you guys doing your expo? Have you already done it? I apologize.
I have
meant
a
to.
master class tonight. I'm doing
Yes.
tonight at 9:30 EST. If you want a late night
And
thing.
just a little hint, we only have 2 singers at
Yeah.
this time signed up. So if you want to sing, we probably will be looking for at least one more volunteer, if not
Mhm.
two. But I was looking to see if you guys have already done your expo. It looks like perhaps you have.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not.
So if you have questions, though, Nadine included her contact info on that yes, slideshow. Thank you.
That's at the top here in the chat. So please
Yeah,
grab it and you got it. And because all of those little web resources you'll be able to click on, and all those good things. But
yeah,
wish
that's
you all
perfect.
the best in audition land. It is a crazy place, but the right school is out there for you. And yeah, if you want to come join me and sing with me tonight, I'd love it. And yeah, thanks everybody. Please reach out
Yeah,
if any questions. I really enjoyed it.
thanks so much for being here, and thank you, Nadine. We always
Yeah,
appreciate your time. Lovely to
no,
see
my
you as
pleasure.
always.
My pleasure. Thanks everybody.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. Thanks, Isaac.